Real quick, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Greenlight.ai. We all know how important compliance is, and Greenlight.ai is the leader for compliance and EOR services, especially for talent platforms. You're going to hear about them later, but thank you to Greenlight. Listen, everyone out there, you're going to be in for a whirl. We're going to talk about flexible talent sales. We're going to talk about an entrepreneur that, when did we meet, Prateek? 2 years ago now?
I think that we met perhaps 2 years ago when I was still in the thick of figuring this thing out and what I was really trying to do and making thousands of mistakes almost every single day. So so I think that's when we met.
And I love these ones because exactly, we met 3 years ago. You were figuring it out, like, absolutely. And the industry was also kind of figuring it out, right? Like, this is not something where 3 years ago, I would say in some ways it was a totally different industry. So let's just start with, Prateek, can you give our audience kind of an intro on you?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a salesperson through and through. It's been a good 20 years that I've been in sales. I've, either sold for a true startup or I've worked with an established business that was starting something new. So I've always really been associated with, their businesses that were essentially building from the ground up. And over the last, I'd say 5 years or so on the side, I was just consulting with a few founders, just really helping them think through their sales strategy, their go-to-market, hiring, outbound, all of that good stuff. And that's really what got me here. So it's been, a good 4.5 years that we've been running Activated Scale, essentially trying to figure out the entire, fractional sales space. And it's been a ride, man. It's been a ride.
And it's so needed. So let me frame a little bit about why 3 years ago I was so excited to meet. So when looking at the flexible workforce, one of the things I'm always talking about is how the incentives are aligned for impact and outcomes. And what I never understand about full-time employment in its entirety. And so I fully agree that, like, core teams, I still think, that should be full-time.
Cool.
But the incentives seem totally misaligned when you do have full-time talent in that. What are they really driving towards? And to me, most full-time roles are driving towards stability and permanence and keeping the benefits. And while that kind of like feels good, the reality is, for us as CEOs, we're like, we have numbers to hit, right? And we have a pipeline to fill. And so, in most cases, I think flexible talent should be the most aligned and the most impactful and effective sort of way to source talent. Now, when we met, I said, have you figured out this sales thing yet? Because although theoretically it makes so much sense, meaning salespeople are measured by their quotas, right? So, like, it should be so easy to just say, okay, let's run this through a marketplace or a platform and let's, contract based off of, the impact and the quota. But no one's figured it out. And so, Prateek, can you just give us the full whirl, man, of 4.5 years and even the pre 4.5 years? Why'd you start Activated Scale? Like, what was the hypothesis? What has happened since? Dude, give us, and your hair's not gray enough. So, like, I'm actually.
It is, man. It is. You just can't see it.
Like, are you using Rogaine? Like, what is the secret? Because we both have the same amount of white hairs in our beard, but, like, you got black hair up there. I don't get it.
So look, I mean, I've been in sales for so long, and being like a hiring manager, for like good 14 years of those 20 years, I have myself made a ton of mistakes when I've hired salespeople. I've worked at businesses that I should never had worked at. And, if there was one thing which always bothered me is, how do we really change the way salespeople are hired, right? That's really the main thing here. And my North Star always with Activated Scale also has been that, like, how do we change the way salespeople are hired? Because going back to what you said, right, this is a revenue focused role. It's a quota driven role. You do your work, you hit your quota, you make your commission, you make your money. And yes, all the other good stuff along with it that of course happens. But at the end of the day, in a role that is so quota driven and so, so just like revenue focused, why does it have to be the way things have always been done? Right? Why does it always have to be, hey, I'm going to take 3 months to find one salesperson. Then I'm going to take 3 months to, help them ramp up. And hey, if the stars align at that 6 month mark, the salesperson is the right salesperson that I want as part of my team. And let's face it, a lot of the times that is not the case. Number one, just because a salesperson may have worked at at like big tech, for example, and may have hit President's Club, and for some weird reason, everyone seems to be hitting President's Club. But if just in case that if they actually hit President's Club, doesn't necessarily mean that that same salesperson is going to be really good for your environment. That is not the case, right? And it's been seen so many times. Like I speak with so many salespeople almost every single day, and it's just like, dude, I did so well at my last employment. This employment, I suck. And it's not that I suck, but there are so many other factors that go into it, right? So why does it always have to be done the way it has always been done? Why can't we change it? Why can't it be in a manner wherein which both sides, for lack of a better word, have the power to decide if they want to work together? It's as simple as that, right? Why can't you get in a salesperson instead of it being 3 months to hire that right salesperson and taking them through like 20 interviews and and 5 presentations and all that BS that happens? Instead of that, why not put them in a practical situation, hire them quicker? So in fact, like for us, most of our clients tend to hire in under 10 days. So why can't you hire in under 10 days, get them in your environment, let them do what they're supposed to be doing. And if they're really good at it, they will perform. And yes, while you're doing that, check for cultural fit, check for team fit. Because however great you think that your interview process is, it's really not. So why not just decide do it that way? And at month 3, figure out, hey, is this the salesperson that I want to commit to? And let the salesperson decide, is this the business that I want to commit to?
Which let me double click real quick on. So are you seeing this work mostly in large companies, small companies, startups, scale startups? Where are you seeing this really take hold?
So for us, I'd say our biggest sweet spot, and this has evolved over time, right? So like when we when we started, we were like really really targeting seed funded businesses, thinking that hey, they still haven't figured it out, but we figured out that the founders haven't figured out their product, let alone sales. Then we sort of started to move a little bit up market, and what we've now figured out is that now like late Series A to about Series C is what our sweet spot is today. And it has been working exceptionally well because there are so many use cases for this, right? Like it's not just, hey, I want to fill that seat and I want to try before I hire, but it's also, hey, I'm at Series B and I've got, this potential opportunity that I want to tap into, but I don't want all my salespeople to focus on that opportunity. Can't I try the fractional route, see if that opportunity actually exists? And then if it exists, get my current sales team to focus there, right? We've had situations where in which, Series C companies have been like, hey, we want to try out a brand new territory. But hey, most of my team is West Coast and they're all, they're so full that even if I request them to do East Coast, I'll be losing revenue. So that's the other use case, right? Like it doesn't always have to be the old school way, but there are so many use cases to this, right? It's like, hey, like for example, there's a client that we're working with today, where in which they know that up until December is going to be crazy time for them. So we're sitting in September, we have one more quarter to go. They need more help. Get in fractional talent. Get that fractional talent in. They're at Series B. They're hiring 4 people. We send that. We spoke with them on Monday. Tuesday, they have people. They're interviewing this week. Next week, they'll have 4 people in. And you have the rest of the quarter taken care of.
So let me double click on the fractional side of this. And I also do so after I make sure I don't forget, I do want to talk about some of the onboarding. So
Sure.
one of the tough parts of sales, right, is like, hey, like when are they good? Are they good in 3 months, 6 months, right? Like immediately. If older executive, maybe it's a quick 1 to 3 month, get the book of business, get the intros, right? Whereas if it's more junior, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 3 months, who knows? So I really want to get into that, like the onboarding side. I think that was always the challenge for us with salespeople was it was a combination of the onboarding, but also like the multiple agent factor of this, which was like, oh, okay, like you having multiple potential things you're selling, which I don't get why particularly. Like I want to put a grain of salt on everything we haven't seen work because I'm like, it shouldn't be that way. But let me double click on the fractional individuals.
Sure.
Tell us about the talent on your network. Are they all sort of, are they the full sales spectrum? Are they, 10 plus years? Are they former CROs? What does the talent look like?
Yeah. So today in our network, we have about 300 odd salespeople. Um, Fortunately, we don't take every salesperson that does come our way. So we've put down like a vetting process. It's gotten better over the years. So last year we were at a 13% acceptance rate. This year we're at 11. Hopefully next year we'll get down to about 8. But that's something that we're always improving upon. So we have about 300 odd salespeople in the network, all US based, because most of our customers are either in the US that want to expand further or are international that want to come to the US. And they are all a combination of, SDRs, full cycle AEs, as well as, of course, sales leadership. Now, when we, talk about SDRs, on an average, they have about 4 years of experience behind them. So they're not really fresh out of school, trying to figure out sales and, hey, I'm going to try the fractional route. In fact, if there's one thing that I'll say is the fractional route is not for people who don't have any experience. If you don't have any experience, don't come here because number one, it's not going to work. You're not there just yet. It takes experience to understand what it means to switch between, one fractional gig and and like a full-time gig or between two fractional gigs. So that takes experience and that takes years of making mistakes. But yeah, so SDRs are typically at this this experience level. Full cycle AEs, they really range, and the big reason why they range is because we have customers that sell into pure play enterprise. So think Fortune 1000, and with them, of course, you need that past Fortune 1000 experience. So they tend to range anywhere between about 7 years to about 15ish years. And then the sales leadership aspect of it, Matthew, is just very, very interesting. Um, we work with so many startups who actually come to us first and they're like, Prateek, we want a VP of sales to fix everything. And the fact of the matter is, you don't really need that VP of sales just yet. You're not ready yet. So when it comes to the sales leadership side of it, we are extremely picky with the kinds of businesses that we work with. So, for example, a great use case there, there's a Series A business that we worked with. They have a team of about 8 AEs already. They've got systems in place. They've got systems that are connected but don't necessarily talk to each other. The founders who are technical have been running the sales team, and that makes sense, right? Now get a VP of sales because again, you are a technical founder, and just like managing salespeople will be difficult. Just like that, for me, I can't code to save my life, so I like totally get it. Get that VP of sales in who can now assess the talent, ensure the systems are talking, everyone is of course aligned. So that's typically the kind of talent that we have and the experience that we have in the network.
Now, let me ask you. So I'm going to ask you a really quick question, and you're only allowed to answer with the either or. Okay. So the question is, and then we're going to get deeper into it. So don't you worry. And don't get mad at me if you're like, F you with that question. But so, are you a staff aug or a experience? which one would you
Ooh,
pick?
experience.
Ah, okay. Do you scope the work with the client or simply post the job on the marketplace?
Scope the work with the client. Always.
Ooh.
Always.
Okay, ready? Ready? Do you spend less than an hour, more than an hour scoping that work?
Now that depends. And
Ah, it's good. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep
yeah,
going. And then, do you see replications of client problem to scoped either job description or or engagement? Do you see repeatable types of engagements?
I do.
Okay, and then the last one is the trial period, meaning you hired these individuals. Is it usually 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? Do you do hourly? What is the typical, we're going to say, pilot engagement?
Yeah. Monthly retainer, we always recommend committing to a salesperson for the first quarter. A salesperson will take time, so we always request at least commit to the salesperson for those, for that first quarter. Presuming things are going well, then keep at it.
Okay, so let me tell you why, and why I asked the specific line of questions. So when looking at like what is really unique and different for flexible talent solutions, and I'll give you a little hint, Pratik. A lot of my logic right now actually is coming from the perspective of where is the massive TAM for this industry and how do flexible talent solutions have their day versus getting kicked out of some of the budgets that are already here. Okay, and so that's why. So part of where we see this industry be so transformational is you've always had the agencies, you've always had full time, and then you've always had this contingent workforce, which has been like staffing slash basically like the temp to hire contractor. Like technically, none of this is new. Now, what I believe is new and what we believe is really transformational is that somebody like you wouldn't go build a staffing company 5 years ago. You maybe would go build an agency, but you've been able to combine the good of staffing, meaning you just connect directly to the individual, as well as the good of the agency, which is, hey, this is my partner. So when shit goes south, they're not just going to send me more people. They're going to make sure that things are framed correctly from the start. And if it goes wrong, which things are going to go wrong, they're going to take care of us. How accurate or misaccurate is that representation of you?
This is extremely accurate. And if you were to tell me this 3 years ago, I would say I have no idea what you're talking about. But today, it is absolutely accurate. And the big reason being, uh, you're still dealing with human beings. That is number one, right? And stuff goes south, that will happen. Whether you hire someone full time, whether you go to the fractional route, sometimes things happen, right? You're still dealing with human beings. But one of the big reasons why we've been able to do this is, when you think about typical staffing agencies, it's like, hey, here are the people, go for it, go have your day. And hey, we got lucky, we got a person in, and when can I invoice you? Uh, Nothing wrong with that model. It works, it's fantastic. And then you have the other side where it's like, hey, we're like partners in this together. And one of the big reasons why we've sort of gotten to that stage more than anything else is because going back to how, well actually I'll say two things. Going back to how we are connecting. So it's not like saying, hey, Series B company, you are selling to a CISO at a Fortune 100 company, or here are 10 salespeople who can do that work. No, that will never work. It's about saying, hey, Series B company, you're selling to a CISO at a Fortune 100 company. Here are 5 salespeople that have been vetted and have had past experience selling to CISOs at those Fortune 500 companies. And because of which they already know how these businesses make those purchasing decisions. They know the politics, or well, rather the internal politics of making that purchasing decision. They know what the sales cycles are. Now let's talk about your product and how they can pitch that to them, right? So number one, how we're connecting is that. Number two, going back to what I'd said earlier, you are dealing with a human being. But again, in sales, it becomes that much simpler because you can literally define, hey, fractional salesperson, here's exactly what I want you to do, which is, let's call it outreach volume there. This should result in X number of meetings, which should result in Y number of demos, which will result in X number of potential deals, which will now result in scoping out projects or dealing with procurement or whatever that case might be, which will then result in a deal close. Right? That's simple. It's a sales process. That's just how it works. And that's when now you can work with these clients and build that scope of work out. And yes, no client is the same, but you can essentially do that and ensure that both the agency side of it, as well as ensuring that we have the right people who've had that past experience can actually deliver, is what makes this work today. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, this was not the case.
Hey everyone, real quick, I want to talk about the risk that is involved with an independent workforce. No matter where you are, whether it's the US, whether it's Brazil, whether it's the EU, whether it's London, there is risk in how you classify and how you work with individuals. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just paying someone. The classification, the actual collaboration, the contracts, the payments, everything is intertwined and must be connected in a way that doesn't get you in trouble with the tax authorities, regulatory authorities, and even potentially class action lawsuits. There are numerous examples of this. Just search classification lawsuit on wherever you want to use, and you'll get plenty. Which is why today's sponsor, Greenlight.ai, is the modern EOR, modern compliance solution for the modern workforce. There's 4 things that we want to call out when hiring an independent worker that you need. And that is, you need to onboard, you need to classify, you need to send payments, and you need to manage this global workforce. It's more than just one person, and Greenlight has all of that covered. All right, I want you to head over to greenlight.ai and tell them Human Cloud sent you. I really think, and this is where, honestly, where I get so excited is I'm like, this is so freaking transformational, right? This is not just StaffHawk, but also not just an agency. Quick question. You know how like marketing and creative and consulting, they all have those brand name agencies that everyone can be like, like no one gets fired from hiring Accenture, right?
Yeah.
Or like, does sales have similar agencies? Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It is. I think it just goes back to the fact that no two clients are the same. No two businesses are the same. No two sales motions are the same. While they may be, similarities, but they're not the same, right? And in fact, one of the things that we recommend most of our clients, who are like, hey, dude, I want someone who's like ex Salesforce, right? I'm like, cool, that's great. But I'm at Series A. I'm like, that Salesforce guy is more than likely not going to work out for you. Yes, they might have that branding, but that's not going to work out because that they're used to systems, processes, tools, branding. You just don't have it. Like you are a nobody.
Yeah, and you have the data on what works and not,
Yeah.
which that is what's so freaking crucial. And because one of the biggest questions we get is like direct sourcing is one of those terms that always gets thrown around, right? And I get it, right? Like it conceptually also makes sense, but then I'm like, do you really want to lose all that data on a platform that sees thousands of these hires, or do you want to just keep going individually to people and just like hoping it works at an individual level, but you don't like? It's just, to me, I'm just like, you need an activated scale, right? To like capture that data that then you reuse with other clients. And that data is not like, competitive. It's not competitive to other companies. It's
Yeah.
literally just, here's how to have the best sales hires. Only your competitors are what it's competitive data for, right? So
That's it.
like, you'd be dumb if you didn't tap into that. Now, let me ask you about like retention and re-engagement of those individuals. do you see that these companies want to stay working fractionally with these salespeople, or how often is it where they go, no, we actually now want them full time?
In 2024, about 65% of our customers ended up hiring their fractional talent as their full-time employees. And that to me is just fantastic, because it just goes back to the fact that sales hiring, or rather traditional sales hiring, is totally broken, right? So 65% of them ended up hiring hiring their fractional talent. That said, our longest engagement till date is 3.5 years of a 4.5 year existence. The company is still working with that person on a fractional basis. The salesperson loves it, and the founder loves it, and they're going at it, right? So, but I'd say again, right? I mean, this is definitely an outlier, but on an average, our like engagements today are about 8.5 to about 9.5 months today, compared to 3.5 years ago, where they were close to about 4 months. So that that's like definitely increased, well, rather doubled. And yeah, just like going back to the data, it's just so interesting to see that in just last year, 65% of them ended up hiring.
Yeah, that I love that. I think so you know what's interesting? This is why around when we first met, we were using the word freelance. And what we would say is we were like, we don't like the term, but we don't know anything better.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of the feeling. And then when we published, Human Cloud, actually, we didn't like the publisher brief did not say Human Cloud. The original title was actually Ready for It, like Future of AI and Freelance to Create the Future of Work, or like something like that.
Okay.
And so, like, we've been very kind of agnostic on terms. Now, what we've seen, especially over the past 2 years, is gig, freelance, fractional, and increasingly AI digital workers. They actually all fit in the same vein, right? Like, we
Huh.
need to be able to capture all of that in one. But the bigger thing we need to capture was the flexibility. And whenever we would talk with, customers that were doing this at scale, and at scale meaning like 10 to 100 million in spend, and they were, these individuals were a strategic part of their business, not just like one-off hires. But
Mhm.
so what we noticed was flexibility was that feeling of like, damn, like what we're really buying here is the flexibility. So then we turn back and we're like, well, is that like the independent workforce? Is that freelance fractional? And I'd say kind of where we've landed is we use the term flexible workforce. And what we say is, gig, freelance, fractional, independence, it is the most efficient, engagement structure for like 90% of use cases.
Mhm.
But with that said, it doesn't have to be that so long as you have the flexibility, which usually means you're making decisions based off outcomes and impact, not because you don't want to have to worry about severance and layoffs and
Sure.
this like permanence continuation, right? So when looking at a solution like yours, I mean, the real value is flexibility related to sales impact and outcomes. Now, when they flip to full time, they still should keep that relationship with you. So, I think over the next year, what you and I will jam on is like, hey, how does that 4 year relationship become a 40 year
Yeah.
relationship? And how does that scalability go up and down rather than off and on? And how does that data around what's good about that individual get captured into activated scale so
Yeah.
that you're an intelligence platform on sales hiring rather than a staffing firm, right? So that's just one thing to think on. How do you feel when you have to flip them to full time? Is it kind of like, oh, no, they're gone? Or is it like, obviously it's a massive success of like, we did so good, but how do you feel about that full time flip?
I honestly love it. I honestly love it. And the big reason why that I like it is because, both sides have had the opportunity to try each other out. And the salesperson who, for lack of a better word, has never had the power to actually decide that, has had the power to decide that. Right. So, I mean, I honestly love it when that conversion happens. Sure, does it suck that, hey, that the salesperson who did so well is now no longer going to be working with us? It does. But what's also interesting to see is that those same businesses who end up hiring their fractional talent when we go back to them after like a few months and we're like, hey, are you cool if those same people who were working fractionally for you before and have now been hired, are you okay if they do other fractional gigs? That is
Ah,
what's so interesting. Almost all of them come back and say yes.
real. Okay, so you actually have changed the customer behavior
And that
related
is
to
so interesting. That was unintentional, but almost all of them are like, hey, man, absolutely. Let those guys do what they do. Uh,
interesting.
right? We got them in this way. Let them
Yeah.
go to other gigs as well.
But you know what's interesting about that is it's actually really selfish to allow them to do that in a positive way
Sure.
because you're enabling them to have the security to keep working with you. Now, this is one of the other things that, as an executive, like honestly, what do I lose sleep over? It's never, is the deal going to get closed? It's never, what's our positioning? It's never, definitely not related to tech stack. Honestly, I just lose sleep over, are we going to be able to keep paying the people who deserve to get paid what they deserve to get paid, right? And my biggest fear is like, oh no, we can't pay our best talent and now they're gone. That is by far my biggest fear. So, I mean, from day one, we've always been like, hey, this is about your like career journey, right? And if you want to come and you want to just work for us, okay, like that's great. You're
Mhm.
going to have to make sure you maintain
Yeah,
making us enough to justify having you, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And so I actually think that's one of the flips that we've seen with really good leaders is they understand it's more about relationship management more so than like locking people into working for you full time. And if they work fractionally and they have other clients, that's for your benefit. I mean, if your business starts to have a bad couple quarters, then they just either increase the scale of their other clients,
Yeah.
but they keep the relationship with you. So that's really cool, Pratik. Now,
One of the
coming
things that
yeah,
sorry, one of the things that I've found so interesting here is that uh, all these salespeople who are working or would rather have been converted and are
yeah,
working with those employers full time, they are still doing their additional side gigs for that very simple reason that the companies that end up hiring them know that, hey, you're hiring them for a sales role. Sales role is driven on metrics. When they hit their metrics, they exceeded their metrics.
yeah.
I mean, hey, things are still working out.
It's great. No,
Yeah,
it's great. I mean, the thing with sales is, I mean, I see a world where you're selling complementary solutions. So rather than, hey, I am only working for this one company, it's more so, hey, I'm really good at this industry. I'm really good at this problem statement, right? And so let's say you're the best at something like supply chain.
sure.
All right, well, go work for five of the complementary supply chain solutions. So then when you walk into a meeting, you're not even just selling one company, which makes your value more because you're more of an independent and partner type sell. And it's more of a consultative sell, right? Um, I that's the world I see us getting to, where it's like every single salesperson actually has five clients under their belt, and it's more about the problem statement and the solution statement, and the solution is I don't want to say indifferent, but that's the world that I see.
I I can see that happen, but also I think that's where I think confidentiality also kicks in, right? Because let's say that if you have five complementary businesses,
Yeah,
and if you're trying to sell to the same kind of buyer persona,
yeah,
now you're essentially positioning yourself as like an agency of those five different businesses. That, hey, by the way, this is good and that's not. So
I see what
I
you're
think
saying.
that's where I think the I mean, like the non-disclosures come in.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I've found
This
is
is why they
that
need you, Pratik. You're actually you're giving the value of the platform, right? This is why they need someone like you versus me who just throws like random ideas out there and you actually know what works or not.
no, but no, but Matthew, I mean, I see what you're saying. I see that happening as well, but I just think that's like a different situation, right? Where it's now, hey, it's like, think about like an insurance company, right? I'm a life insurance company. I'm like a general broker. I do all these businesses. That is slightly different. Whereas here, that's where the confidentiality comes in because of the fact that Number one, no two businesses are the same. No two buyers buy the same way. And now if you're selling complementary services, that's where things start getting a bit mucky. So with us, one of the things that we've essentially put in is that we've said, hey, you can do 2 fractional gigs at the most. We don't recommend them to do more than 2 because it's really not practically possible. I mean, you have 40 hours, you have a life, you've got other stuff going on, and sure, I mean, like if you want to take on fractional gig number 3, that is a possibility, but that's just pushing it. But even if they have 2, one of the things that we always said is that you cannot sell to the same buyer persona. And we've always focused on that buyer persona so that they're not really, number one, confused by what's really going on. And number 2, even when you're working with that particular company, you are essentially, ensuring that you're representing them the right way.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I'm going to keep grilling you on that, Prateek,
Go
and
for it, man.
maybe in 2 to 5 years we figure out a way to, because it's really it's more so replicating the advisor, right?
I see
Whereas
that. Yeah,
someone's
I see that
hey,
side of it.
been in the industry for 25 plus years. But listen, here's the last question that I have for you, and
Sure.
that is very, very simple. All of our listeners right now are listening and saying, "Oh, this is a better way to potentially, run and source for my sales team." What's the one thing you want them to do? Is it as simple as go to our site, or is there something that you always recommend for them to look for? For example, are your sales metrics down, or are your sales metrics up, or is there a market you want to hit? But what is the one thing you recommend for our listeners to do right
Yeah.
now?
If there's anyone thinking about hiring fractional talent, if there's one thing I'll say is ensure that you have your back end, which is really tight. And by that, what I mean is, do you know what your sales process is? Do you have that documented? Do you have your messaging down? Do you have your tools and tech in place? Do you know why customers buy and why customers churn? And if you have all of that down, then it's the right time to potentially hire a fractional salesperson. Until then, don't think about it because somebody from the outside cannot really come in and fix what's already broken. That is not going to happen. So if your sales aren't happening because your product sucks, fix your product. If your sales aren't happening because you don't know why customers are buying from you, fix that first before you start adding more problems to your current problem. So I would say get that down, fix that, and then let's chat.
That's a good salesperson, my friend. All right, Prateek, where can our listeners find you, and where can they find Activate Skill?
ActivatedScale.com, and I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm always on there, and yeah, you can email me Prateek@activatedscale.com.
I love it, Prateek. Thanks for hopping on, man.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me today.